Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Whitney, and I'm so excited today in our WELL Expert interview series to be joined by our Nourishment Concept Lead, Anja Mikic. You are in for such a treat. There is an incredible background history of the nourishment concept in the WELL standard. Some people know it well. Some people, this was really new research and information for them to apply on WELL projects. So, Anja, what is the WELL Nourishment Concept and what is its goal?
So, the nourishment concept is an evidence-based list of strategies that I would say at its core encourages the creation of food environments where the healthiest choice is the easiest choice. The way that I like to personally think of healthy foods, we think of these as nutrient-dense foods. We can think of these as minimally processed foods, essentially foods that you would be able to easily recognize and name. Within the nourishment concept, we have a large focus on fruits and vegetables because these are truly the foundation of a healthy diet and a healthy dietary pattern. And yet, most individuals around the world do not consume enough fruits and vegetables. And this includes children, teens, and adults. And I really want to emphasize that this is a global problem. So around the world, there is low consumption of fruits and vegetables. In fact, nearly 3% of our global deaths are attributable to low fruit and vegetable consumption. And then, of course, we know it also has associations with gastrointestinal cancer, heart disease, and stroke deaths. So, generally, we do want to aim to have about 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, but at least here in the US, 1 in 10 adults do not meet that recommendation. And so, this is a large and really, I think, significant issue. And why do we care? Well, we all know that fruits and vegetables are an important source of fiber. They're an important source of antioxidants, as well as other nutrients. And this all supports our physical health, as well as our mental health, and also so much more. In the standard, at least, we focus on limiting processed foods. So this includes sugar sweetened beverages as well as packaged snacks. And in the standard, we tend to use sugar as the proxy for these items. And again, an increasingly global problem, as you may know, and I think everyone knows now that the Western or standard American diet is expanding. So it's expanding to countries around the world. And unfortunately, this diet is characterized by low fruit and vegetables, larger portions, excess sugar, excess calories. So there's a reason why this is our number one feature in the standard. And then the second key kind of term I want to focus on here is the word choice, right? Making the healthy choice the easy choice. We don't want to outright ban foods. We want to promote nutritional transparency. We want to promote education. We want to really make sure that individuals know what they're eating and also what they're not eating. And so that's a large piece here, and I'm sure we'll touch on it later.
Amazing, Anja. And I want to elevate that as building certifications go, WELL is now pushing to be the largest and most comprehensive standard in the world on health and well-being for workplaces, period. Which means that we're moving beyond only being a healthy building standard. And we were also the first to put forward nourishment as a concept. So really important. I'm going to emphasize a couple key points for everyone here that are really important to take home. So here's the thing about food. We hate being told what to eat and when to eat it. All the public health research will tell you this. As soon as I take it away from you, you want it. I have a toddler. I can do that experiment every single day. So what we want to do is provide choice. So we're going to allow people to opt in the WELL building standard, and we are going to get more into detail on this. But what we do is we make the healthy choice the easy choice by making the healthy food more accessible, more available. We want to think even about how it's featured, the lighting that brings out the colors of the food. We want to think about the price of the food. We want to think about the fast lane to get it. We want to think about the social components of how you eat that food. And so from the very beginning, we're going on 10 years at IWBI with the WELL building standard. I've talked about the healthy choice being the easy choice. And the big part of this is that when we talk about food, Anja, Everyone has 1,000 reasons why they can't eat healthy. And these are super real reasons. And if you are being honest, at some point or the other, you had one of them. So I think about the excuses I hear are, I don't have time, I don't have the money, it doesn't taste good, all my friends are eating something else that looks better. If you're a captured audience, like in an airport, there's no choice, right? It's the delicious pizza or the weird salad bar. And that doesn't really feel like a choice. Some people don't know what they're eating. So even when they feel like they're eating a banana-like food, they're not getting that nutrient-dense quality, which we put forward in WELL around whole foods. And the list goes on and on. And so I'm really looking forward in our discussion today about talking about how the WELL building standard in the nourishment concept looks at making healthy food or nourishing food the healthy choice and the easy choice. And what we do in our feature language to try to look at strategies that make those excuses in some ways go away. I don't know if you have any examples you want to throw in there, but we have some really cool features in WELL that just start to say, let's make this a little bit easier to eat healthy. Do any of them particularly come to mind that you want to share, Anja?
Yeah, I think one thing that we generally use throughout the standard is leveraging choice architecture and behavioral science to, again, design better food environments. So you're going to be looking at the placement of foods. You're going to be looking at, are they eye level? Are they easily visible, or are they hidden, or do they require like a little bit more effort to reach and to select? And we want to make sure that these healthier options are placed at the beginning of food service lines, where you're, statistically more likely to pick them up and choose put these items on your plate, as opposed to if they were at the end of the line and you're going through, your plate's already full, and now you see the salad bar there and you're like, I don't have room for this, or maybe I'll come back to it, like we all say, we never do. But the opposite of that is, what are those items then that you are putting at the very end of the line? So maybe this is where we put, at least in the standard, this is where we're going to see our red and processed meats. So looking at positioning those away from like a main course, main meal type of scenario to more of a supplement to your meal. And so I think that that's a great example of how you can see both of those playing out here. Again, looking what you're trying to promote, what you're placing at eye level, and again, what are you trying to discourage? Again, without limiting choice. So you're always going to have this here, but we're really nudging healthier or, better behaviors.
Great points. And many people out there, when we teach and train on WELL, might ask us, how does an architect get involved in creating healthy food choices? And it's because, as we've seen a rise, for example, in illnesses and increased morbidity and mortality around obesity, the idea of what you eat is not only personal choice. There are a lot of environmental cues that we are given, where if you do not tune in, tap in, and turn on to understanding that your environment is basically giving you cues to eat healthy or giving you cues to eat unhealthy, then you're missing it. And people almost feel victimized in their environments. So many people we talk to say, I want to eat healthy. Rarely do I meet someone that is managing a weight issue or obesity that wants to continue being in this space, but feels like it's just so challenging to know what kind of food to eat, when to eat it, and feels like all the cues, the signs, the advertisements, the cheap food at the checkout aisle, they're all ways in which little by little, 11 different times a day, you start eating unhealthy, highly processed, calorically dense, cheap food. And over a lifetime, that adds up. And the workplaces where we spend 90,000 hours of our life have a huge role to play, not to mention, those schools that we send our children, which really is their workplaces, and the healthcare environments, including senior living, just to name a few of the environments that make a huge, huge role, huge difference That is why architects, designers, and our experts in this space, you are leading in designing healthy environments that make that easy choice the healthy choice to make. So you regularly convene an advisory of experts from around the world that are helping to inform the nourishment concept. And I want to make sure everyone is clear. Sometimes I hear this concept like, oh, research is done. The research is done. We figured it out. Let me be clear, we haven't. We continue to understand how humans are interacting in the environment. And we also continue to understand new interventions and strategies. And with that, we have to be thoughtful of different disciplines, right? And different ways in which we see these interventions operationalized around the world. Can you spend just a minute or two telling our audience about your background in this space? And if you'd like to add in some of the diversity of people that you work with on your concept advisory, we'd love to hear about that too.
So I have my master's in nutrition from Columbia University, which is what originally brought me to New York and what also led me to IWBI. I was really drawn to nutrition and I grew well when I found out about it, especially because of its potential for impact. So beyond the one-on-one approach that a dietitian would typically offer you. And so for the past 8 years, I've been the WELL Nourishment Concept here on the standard development team. I've been involved in, I think, the development, honestly, of all of our standards. I was here from the beginning, WELL version 1, version 2 pilot, version 2 itself, the WELL Community Standard pilot, and then recently I was our program lead for our WELL for Residential Standard, which is a bit of a different application, moving away from the commercial side to the residential side. But all throughout this, in my nourishment concept lead role, I have had the wonderful WELL Nourishment Advisory alongside me. This is a global and interdisciplinary group of experts. And the nourishment advisory itself includes interior designers. We have food service providers, chefs, registered dietitians, public health professionals, again, the behavioral science researchers, and so much more. And they are who I turn to for these tricky project scenarios, these unique implementation questions. We brainstorm innovative solutions. We work on new features, so beta features together. I don't know what I would do without them, honestly, but especially from a global perspective, they are, my eyes and ears on the ground and truly experts in their respective fields. So it's been great having them. And, we don't do this ourselves by any means. And I would just add that, especially for food, it is so personal. It is, and it's also so political. It is highly, highly regulated, especially around the world. So it's challenging to write a global standard, and we need to think it through all of the regulations, but also just the cultural implications. And we've heard this in WELL, we focus on fruits and vegetables, but there are cultures where you don't just give out fruits and vegetables, for free. This is a gift. There's a lot of respect with giving someone fruits and vegetables. So it's been really fun and challenging to work through all these scenarios together, but they are a great group, and we have the similar concept or similar advisory structure for all our concepts, and they provide that level of support for us.
So what is an issue that you are really tracking right now, or a key topic related to nourishment that you'd like to share with our viewers?
One thing that I'm personally interested in and tracking is the topic of ultra processed foods. But there's a whole classification system for processed foods. It's called NOVA. And as you can imagine, given the name, ultra processed foods are going to be at the top of that list, being that they're going to be the most processed. And this group includes a lot of packaged snacks, sodas, foods, think energy drinks, think chicken nuggets, think ready to eat meals. So truly foods that have a lot of processing, that have oftentimes lost their original shape or that they came in, or really even their identity. And so why do we care about this? There is emerging evidence, but again, not a ton, but definitely some coming out that suggests that consuming these ultra processed foods is associated with a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, anxiety, and depression. And the stat that really shocks me, and I would say why I'm so curious about this, is the fact that in the US, 60% of the calories that children and teens are consuming come from ultra processed foods. So it's a
Mhm.
huge category. Um, and in terms of the emerging research, there are some studies coming out. I think most recently, a few years ago, there's a randomized control trial. So, for those who don't know, these are the top tier of our evidence base. And they had subjects essentially consume either an unprocessed diet for 2 weeks and or a processed one, and then they flipped them, and the meals were matched for calories and macronutrients and everything. And what they ended up observing was that the individuals who were consuming the ultra processed diet, they ended up consuming over 7,000 more calories during the 2 week period, which is about 500 extra calories a day. And then this equated to about an extra 2 pounds gained at the end. And so I just think that studies like this are really showing to us that there is these foods are messing with our appetite, they're messing with our hunger hormones, and it's potentially, but again, we need more research to confirm this, why we're seeing such an increase in food consumption.
Let's dig into that more from the perspective of why do ultra processed foods matter for designers and architects and sustainability experts and engineers? So, how are we going to design in the healthy choice and design out ultra processed foods?
Simply have better food choices available. So again, prioritizing fruit and vegetable options, prioritizing these minimally processed foods, whole grains, another great one. Um, and then minimizing bread and processed meats, promoting drinking water. So essentially, what food do we offer day to day? What's available? So first and foremost, just taking look at that and analyzing what choices individuals have. The second bucket that I think is really important is nutritional transparency. So individuals should know what they're eating. I am, very much believe this. I think that it's critically important to millions of individuals out there who have food allergens, who have special dietary requirements, or who just simply, like many of us, like are experimenting with their diet, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't for them. And I think that this concept of personalized nutrition is growing. When we think about all the places that we actually consume food, this level of nutritional transparency doesn't exist there often. So if I am going to get a snack from a vending machine, I typically can't see the nutrition back label, even if it's on this. Um, on the item because it's in the machine. Or if I'm going to eat at a cafeteria, there's typically no labeling there. So, one thing that we are trying to promote in the WELL standard, and I think is a great best practice, is just to focus on that nutritional transparency, especially for items that typically get left out of that label. So, how do we bring that label forward? There's a great, I would say there's a lot of innovative solutions here. There are healthier vending machines, and you can actually even, find a vending machine that gives you these labels that you can look at before purchasing that item. But ultimately, we want people to feel confident about what's in their food and also what's not in their food. Um, and then I think we've covered this a few times now, but again, just utilizing that choice architecture, that nudge theory, positioning and placement is going to be key for ultra processed foods. I would say make them difficult to reach for, put them behind you know, behind it, maybe even like put them in a drawer. So you have to go search for them or put them on the bottom of the shelf so they're not eye level. And then we want to continuously be promoting these healthier food options. And with those, you want to put them in prominent positions. You want to make sure that they're easily identifiable, easily available. And if you can alter with it, this one's always a bit tricky, but use pricing strategies to also incentivize the healthier choice here.
Those are such key points, Anya. And I want to layer on that the earlier concept that you do not want to remove the food that people love, and you do not want to in any way be punitive. So we have several case studies now where, from a public health perspective, we know that if we reduce sugar or eliminate sugar, for example, that actually has a benefit, for example, in soft drinks. And you saw certain even cities and jurisdictions take these sort of incentives on. But what happens is, from a behavioral perspective, that's not seen as someone taking care of my health. Often it's seen as taking the thing that I love, that one break in my day, that moment that I was looking forward to. And I will say, from WELL project perspective, I was often asked this as we were implementing WELL in the early days. People were really fearful of not having their soda or not having their ability to bring in cake or donuts to the office. And WELL by no means is punitive in this space. So you can bring in your big gulp, you can bring in your huge, donuts if you want. But what we really want to emphasize is that it's not something that, from your employer's perspective, they're providing for you. And the difference there is that your employer wants to keep you happy, healthy, and productive. And the research is going to show that if we bring in donuts and big gulp, you're not going to be as productive because your brain's going to crash about 45 minutes after that sugar intake. And so, although those behaviors still persist in well-certified spaces, someone might bring in the donuts or bring in the soda, is that after a while, not dissimilar to early smoking behaviors, is that when you disincentivize that unhealthy behavior and you incentivize the healthy behavior, over time, people just kind of forgot about the donuts, and the fruit was better and actually way more attractive, and they felt better. And in these ways, it wasn't feeling like it was being taken away. It just slowly started getting replaced. And the other concept that I'll also highlight here, and this is from anywhere in the early days of WELL, of Sydney to Stockholm to San Francisco, is that these little snack bars that you'll often see in well-certified spaces, where the vending options are not just stale chips and soda. Not to pick on soda, but this is the nourishment concept, and I'm in public health. So is that these little cafes could be open all hours of the day. And often people would report that even walking by that kind of gave them this burst of energy of just having a healthy snack and having that accessible. And we often heard those late night cram sessions, which absolutely happen, is that people relied on vending machines and really highly processed foods during those times because that's the only thing that was open. And just having a moment to have a healthy snack for your brain, it's not only a good investment for you as an individual, but for the company in general, because hopefully we want you to get that deadline and we want you to crush it. So food is going to be the fuel for that. So just, a big emphasis here on how we can actually incentivize healthy behavior, decentivize unhealthy behavior. And the stories that we've learned around this is not about taking it away. It's just about giving you more options and allowing people to step into that behavior. So those are really great points. So I'd love for you to share, Anja, throughout your work on the nourishment concept, is some aha moments that you have had. So these are just experiences or research studies that you read or advisors that have joined and you thought, oh, aha, I did not think of the research that way, or I had not even conceptualized this is how the WELL building standard might be operationalized in this way. So would love for you to sort of share those aha moments with us.
Yes. I would say my first aha moment, as I said, I've been involved in all the versions now, I think, of WELL. And my first aha moment came very early on. And I think I was doing an analysis of global certification, um, kind of sustainability certifications in the market. And I was personally looking at their nourishment requirements. So where is WELL Nourishment Concept special? Where are we aligned with these other sustainability standards? And at that time, there weren't too many, healthy building standards out there. And with or kind of what I found in my analysis was that the nourishment concept was an area that was truly unique to WELL. I wasn't really finding anything else about fruits and vegetables or mindful eating or food allergen labeling anywhere else in these global certification systems I was looking at. And this wasn't too surprising, right? Because our strategies are always going to be health focused and they're not necessarily sustainability based, although there is a ton of overlap. But at least when it comes to food, you're not really seeing this topic covered in these green um, standards. And so I remember thinking, this is great. Like, this is a wonderful differentiator for Well. And then I had this moment where, I was also hearing that we had so many early adopters of Well who were lead projects or Green Star projects or essentially some other sustainability project. And they were coming and they were trying to do well. And it dawned on me that these projects, teams, that they who may be so well versed with air quality and thermal quality and material selection and all these other um, topics that had some overlap with well and sustainability. But when it came to nourishment, it may be and often was the first time that they were actually having to think about food quality and implementing some sort of nutrition standard. And so I remember thinking that, wow, like we need to redefine the project team. Typical project team is going to have your engineer and your architect and your contractor and your facilities manager. But what about your food service operators? Where are they? Where are your registered dietitians? Um, and early on, that was a goal of mine and honestly still is. I wanted to redefine the project team. I wanted to make sure that these individuals who had the nutritional knowledge were part of those conversations and that they were at the table early on. Um, and so, even years ago, I was really a champion of all of these individuals and many who are now part of my nourishment advisory becoming a well AP. And gaining that knowledge and being able to feel empowered and educated to contribute to these early conversations that are having on, because especially when it comes to design, if you're not getting these important facts early or contributions early on, it might be too late down the line. We're not going to rip out a kitchen or rip out an eating space. So I do see a lot of value, and this is a shameless plug for the WELL AP credential, but I think that it's a great credential to have, and especially for anyone in the nourishment and nutrition space, I would highly encourage you to pursue it, and really highly encourage everyone to think about adding their voice, to those conversations and to joining that project team. Um, so that was a big one. And I do have one more that I'd love to share here because it connects on a lot of what we've been talking about today. But as you said, we actually were very strict with well in earlier versions. So I think in version 1, over 50% of the nourishment strategies were mandatory, and we set the bar really, really high. And so projects would come, especially the we just mentioned, who are coming from more of the sustainability world, they come in and they see this really uh, strict, nourishment standard that I think they just didn't know what to do with it. And it was probably scary. It was outright banning certain foods. And that was something we immediately wanted to solve for with Well version 2. And this is also what I've been hearing from my advisors. If you restrict something, people are just going to go get it somewhere else. So um, I'm very, I guess, proud to say that now we have so much more flexibility in the standard. You can have your um, other options, but you also want to, again, be able to use all the strategies that we just talked about to encourage the healthy choice, to make it the easy choice. So that was a big lesson learned, and just a big shout out to the Nourishment Advisory for continuously reinforcing that. Even now, when we're thinking about new strategies and how to position them as new features in the standard, we never want to be limiting the choice. Again, it comes down to that keyword of choice. And so those two, I think, experiences together have really been big aha moments, and they continue to impact what I do now almost a decade later.
That's amazing. And I'll add on to the idea of promoting more registered dietitians and health experts to be part of an integrated project team. So we are asking building experts to be knowledgeable in public health, and we also need to ask our public health colleagues to step into thinking about the design process differently. I've heard countless stories on the ground where and this is not dissimilar to other areas, technology often faces this as well, is that if they're brought in too late into the design process, they can't make the changes that they need to. And so I want to remind everyone that when it comes to nourishment, is that if you spend 90,000 hours at work and 90% of your time indoors, your indoor environments at work are going to matter for what you eat. There are projections that go upwards of 85% of what you eat will be consumed from within a 5-mile radius of where you live and work. So where you spend time matters for what you eat, and your doctor is not going to be the one that tells you what to eat. As a huge reminder, there are amazing physicians out there in practice, particularly preventative medicine, but the majority of medical schools do not require nutrition education, which means it can be 3 hours or less. So they are there as a diagnostician once there's an injury or illness. So when you break it down, if you're telling me that one of the largest determiners how long I live is where I spend time and the behaviors that I have, and then you're telling me the majority of my life is going to be spent at work, and the majority of what I eat is going to be from a 5-mile radius of where I live and work, and I have no expert on my side. So what I do have is advertisements and posters and highly processed addictive food. And we, after over 20 years of elevating obesity as a pandemic that, by the way, in the US, we started and we spread around the world, we are no better off. And it gives me chills. We thought we made some progress with looking at childhood obesity rates, but these seem to still be anywhere from a third to even more of the population is dealing with obesity, if not 2/3 overweight. And of course, that varies per state. And it varies, we have definitely diversity issues in that as well, around different groups being influenced. But if you don't have an advocate in your court to make your workplaces have healthy food, how do you expect to make that change? And if you know everything about nourishment, that's amazing. But I think, Anja, as an expert in this area who spent years studying it at Columbia, you can attest it's not easy. And even when you do know it, they come up with something new, like ultra processed foods, right? They're even more addictive than before. So I think the idea of getting an advocate, going for WELL, having someone in your corner that starts to create environments that make that healthy choice easy choice. This is not a nice to have, it is a need to have. And for workforces, if you think that the fuel of ultra processed foods is going to get you the maximum human capital benefit from your employees, then you're really misled. And a lot of the answers to that are going to be in the nourishment concept. So I highly support and advocate for more expertise and more champions in our court to create and design spaces that support healthy choices for food. So on that, you can see that I am clearly very passionate about this and I'm compelled. And so let's talk and close this out on a call to action. So we have a lot more work to do. And if anyone out there is listening to this and you can tell me that 100% of my workforce is eating the healthy food that they love every single day, all day, that's amazing. We want to hear from you. For the rest of us, it's still really challenging. And so we have work to do and we need to get started on that. So what is our call to action for folks that want to contribute to the nourishment concept? Where can they get involved? Where can they learn more? And how can they participate in, I think, compelling the research and the WELL building standards to continue to do this incredible work in the field?
So first, we always have our advisory applications. They open in September. Again, the nourishment advisory, I am not even sure where the nourishment concept would be without them. And so if you are interested in getting more directly involved in helping us strategize, helping us innovate, helping us come up with solutions for some of these issues that projects have. So that I would say that's the first thing I would encourage you. Keep your eyes open in September for that, and then you can apply to join the WELL Nourishment Advisory The second way to get involved is in the WELL Forum. We're all in there, and I'm also constantly answering questions, but also proposing my own questions. And so this is something I wanted to share about what we're actively discussing with the Well Nourishment Advisory now is around the impact of hybrid and remote work, especially when it comes to nutritional health. And as you said, Whitney, we spend so much of our time in the office. And now with this trend and it's staying, right? Hybrid work is here to stay. I do have concerns over individuals who are no longer getting the benefits of their work environment at home. And we've had several conversations now around nutritional health at home. Um, and we don't know what people's home environments are like. And it is more challenging to impact their food choices there as opposed to at work. And I like to remind everyone, and I've said this so many times, but I really do view the office or your, especially a well-certified space, as a great equalizer. So similar to, school lunches where we do have that opportunity to impact students and give them healthy food, we have that same opportunity available in the office. But it's difficult to actually impact food choices at home. And so this is something that we're discussing with the nourishment advisory. And if anyone listening has stories to share, lessons learned, I'd be very interested in hearing that. But what we found so far is that it's not a one size fits all approach when it comes to hybrid and remote work and nutritional health. There are so many things to consider, especially when it comes to a global workforce. But this is just one area I think where we need to get creative and innovative and remember to continue investing in the health of everyone, no matter where they work from. So that's an area that, my call to action, help us address this growing and this trend that's here to stay of hybrid and remote work. And not just nourishment, this is something we're actively looking to address in well for all our concepts, but it is particularly challenging when it comes to food.